Welcome back to the Kernelcon Meshtastic project. Now we're going to start putting our node together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this case that everything came in, we're going to open it up, and a few things we're going to put away. These battery leads right here, we're not going to be using these, so we'll put them back in the case. This little antenna right here that came with the kit, we won't be using it, we'll put it away. And these two sets of pin headers we won't be using, so we'll put them back in this box. If you'd like to keep this box, feel free. If you don't have a use for it, give it back to one of the HHV staff and we'll hold on to it and repurpose it for another task. So moving on to the components we are going to use. We have our battery with a connector on the end of it that only connects to the microcontroller one way. We have our antenna pigtail. This is an SMA connector on one end, and this is an IPEX connector on the other end. This IPEX connector kind of clips on like a button, so we'll show you that as closely as we can when we're assembling it. We have the retainer nuts and pieces for our SMA connector. So these go on one end, and then this nut right here will tighten everything down and it'll secure it onto our case backside. So when we look at the case, there's a hole for the SMA connector on the one end, and then over here there's where all of the pieces go, and then this is the front of the case. And be careful because there are these two little plastic buttons that you can kind of see in the picture. These two buttons fit right here on this front case, and then this is what it looks like from the front side, and the buttons allow you to have press action from outside the case. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our antenna connector and we're going to insert it through this hole right here. And it might go kind of tough, but eventually it'll slide through and we'll be able to move on. So there it's going through, and there it goes through. And also, I forgot to mention, there's one additional piece. This is a very small lanyard loop. Now the case itself has provisions to put a lanyard through the case, but then it ends up with the antenna facing down and it's just kind of unwieldy. So we're going to use this loop in kind of a different way to have the Meshtastic node hang from your Kernelcon badge or hang from a lanyard of your choosing. So first thing we'll do is get this antenna through and get it all the way through, and then make sure you have the resulting wire pointing towards the larger spaced side of the case. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this lanyard and we're going to loop it around this connector and feed it through itself like a slip knot. If I can get it on there. We'll try that again. We'll loop it around like a slip knot and then feed it through and then pull it tight. So we'll pull it tight and then we'll kind of push it down towards the base so we end up with our loop as close to the case as we can. And the next thing we're going to do is take our washer that has the notches in it and we'll put that on. Put it with the flat side towards the case. Then we'll take the lock washer right here. It's the washer that's got the cut in it, lock washer, and we'll put it on. And then lastly we'll take the retaining nut and we'll put the nut on and we'll screw it. And while I'm doing this, I'm holding this string tight so that noose loop around the SMA connector stays nice and tight. We'll tighten this all down. In the Hardware Hacking Village there are several pairs of pliers. You can grab them and tighten this up. But what we want to end up with is a situation like this where we've got this lanyard that allows us to hold on to the case and hang it securely, and it won't come off because those nuts hold it in place. Alright, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our Meshtastic microcontroller board, and we've got this IPEX connector off of our SMA antenna pigtail. We're going to put it right here. If you look, I'll let this camera focus a bit. If you look right here, you can see there's the IPEX connector on the microcontroller board. And we'll just take this and we'll put it on top, and it'll click in like a button. You'll hear it and feel it just click right on there. And then you'll be able to rotate it but it'll stay connected. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our GPS connector. So every Meshtastic node in the kits that we have comes with GPS. So this will allow you to have your location and be able to share your location with other people that are on the mesh. It's really good for outdoor work or travel or things like that. So we're going to take this GPS connector and we're going to have the side with the dot on it facing towards the bottom of our case. So we've got the antenna connector here at the top, and this is the bottom. And if you look in the case, you'll see that there are these plastic pieces that are meant to hold the GPS antenna and hold the GPS receiver in place. So what we're going to do is position this like this. We're going to take our GPS antenna and point it like this, and we're going to kind of orient these wires to be at a 90-degree angle. And then in the case, we will insert our GPS receiver in the middle, and then we'll have the wires go between this plastic arm. There you can see it pretty well. So there's the plastic retainer and then the edge of the case, and the wires go between that, and then everything is held in place very nicely just like that. So I'll turn it here so you can see it, and I'll try to post some pictures of this in the guide on the project page on hackspace.io. So you can see there that the receiver fits very well in between those plastic retaining arms, with the wires between the edge of the case and the outside of this retainer arm. So the wires are in this space right here. Now what we're going to do is flip this over, and we're going to connect the GPS receiver to the board. So the end with the lip on it goes towards the bottom. The connector will only go in one orientation, one way. It'll only go in the right way. So we'll put that in, and then we'll make sure that we have our GPS wire oriented towards this side of the board as well, so that it stays out of our way. Now the last thing that we need to do for the back is to insert our battery. So we're going to insert the battery like this, with the power connector towards the bottom right corner as I'm looking at it right now, so opposite the SMA connector. And then it's very important that you make sure you have your antenna itself connected out here before you plug in the battery. If we plug in the battery and the unit turns on and we don't have an antenna, we could damage some of the circuitry. So we connect our antenna and it just screws right on. And then we are going to connect the battery. Now there are two ports, and it's somewhat hard to see in the video. I'll be sure to post a picture of it. But one of the ports is labeled V solar right here, and the other one is labeled V bat. So the bat connector is where we want to put our battery. So we're going to take our connector and plug it into the battery side. And it'll only plug in one way. So if it's not going in easily, you potentially have it the wrong way. So make sure that you look at the connector and insert it firmly, but also be gentle so that we don't break anything. Then when you get it in, the unit will turn on. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. It'll flash some colors. Nothing to worry about there. So we'll tuck our battery back in. We will orient the wires. And if we look, you'll see that there's a slight cutout at the top of the case where the USB-C connector fits right in very nicely. So what we're going to do is just kind of position things, make sure everything looks good, orient these wires so that we're not smashing them quite as much, so they go a little bit more behind the unit rather than underneath of it. Make sure that our battery or our antenna cable is tucked in the side. And how I have it right here, it's looking pretty good. If we look down, we see that it's flat. I don't have to have a lot of force to hold it in. It's just gently sitting there. And if you need any help with any of these adjustments, or you need an extra hand, just let us know. We'll be happy to help you. Now, when I let go, it does move a little bit, but it generally stays in position, and this is kind of what we want. So now for the last step, we're going to take the front of the case and we're going to flip it so it's face down. And then there are these two clear plastic buttons. They're right here. So these two buttons sit in this case, and the buttons have a shoulder so they don't fall through. So you can just orient these buttons into the holes, just like that. So now I've got both of my buttons sitting in the hole, and then what I'm going to do is the buttons on this microcontroller board are actually right here and right here, so they're close to the antenna. So what you want to do is you want to hold this unit with the antenna pointing down, and you want to bring your case front and touch these sides together, and then just ever so slowly and gently tip them together, and with any luck you'll end up with a situation like this where I'm making sure to hold it because it's not screwed together. But when you get to this point, make sure that both of your buttons click and have a good tactile feel. And once we get to this point, flip the unit screen down very carefully, and there are 4 screws. They're kind of long, so these 4 screws go one in each corner. And they are a little tough to get in the first time. The plastic has very tight tolerances. And tighten those screws up. There are screwdrivers all over the Hardware Hacking Village. The screws are kind of small, so make sure you find a screwdriver that has the right pitch and is the right size to help you get them in there. You do have to get these screws fairly tight to have the case seal up. So at this point, I've got the screws in, I'm holding the face on. Make sure my buttons are still tactile and I feel them click. And then it works best if you kind of squeeze the case and tighten them in from the side. And then once you get everything tightened in, the case will go together nicely, and you've got the lanyard right there on the top. And that's the end of our assembly video. The next video we'll talk about flashing the firmware on this and actually making it function.